Could all of humanity's problems stem from this? There's a story behind that. This is your daily message from Chad number 958 to upgrade your mental game today by telling yourself a better story. Because the most important story you hear is the story you tell yourself. If you've not followed or subscribed yet, please do. This message is dedicated to Kevin Kelly. Here's the upgrade. Your brain tells you boredom is bad, but upgraded thinking knows less stimulation always equals deeper thinking. Here's the story. In 2014, researchers at the University of Virginia brought people into their lab and told them they were going to be asked to sit alone in an empty room for 10 to 20 minutes. They took everything away from them, cell phones, watches, iPods. Next, they showed the participants some random pictures. Finally, they pointed out a nearby button which, when pressed, would give them an electric shock. Westgate says they had each participant press the button, quote, just for practice, end quote, and then asked them how unpleasant it was and whether they'd pay money not to be shocked again. The participants said the shock was unpleasant, and yes, they would pay money to avoid being shocked again. The researchers then asked the test subjects to sit and entertain themselves with their own thoughts for 10 to 20 minutes. There were only two rules. They weren't allowed to get out of the chair, and they couldn't fall asleep. They encouraged the participants to enjoy themselves with pleasant thoughts. And, oh, yes, if you'd like to receive an electric shock again, go ahead and press the button. Westgate says the research team had debated this aspect of the study. It was ridiculous, some thought, to think people would choose to shock themselves. They were astounded by the results. You could say they were shocked. Quote, they'd already told us they didn't like the shock. They'd already told us they'd pay not to receive the shock again, says Westgate with surprise. So we weren't really expecting that people would do that, but at the end of the study, we found that about 70% of the men and 25% of the women chose to shock themselves during that time period, instead of just sitting there and entertaining themselves with their thoughts, end quote. In 1654, scientist and philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Pascal seemed to have anticipated this experiment at the University of Virginia. I just finished sitting in a chair doing nothing before recording this message. Yesterday's message had me go back in the archives and look up the Serene 15 Challenge. I didn't realize it had been over 500 days since we did that. What was the Serene 15 Challenge? It was an invitation to boredom. It's no secret that our contemplation muscles have atrophied. Culture and environment makes it really hard to focus and concentrate. We don't stop. It's become a deadly sin to be bored. Inspired by this study and Pascal's observation, the Serene 15 Challenge was a tiny trial for getting a pulse on your attention health. If you never allow yourself to just sit, some would call it meditation, I challenge you to try it. The only rule is you can't do anything. If you fall asleep, it doesn't count. Why 15? 15 minutes is roughly 1% of your day. It's actually 14 minutes, 24 seconds, so we're rounding up. So each day you have 100 15-minute chunks. The Serene 15 Challenge is to take one of those and do nothing. The better story to tell yourself is, I do things every day that build my attention muscles. Tell me a story of sitting quietly to fromchadsmith@gmail.com. It really helps others find these messages when you comment, like, subscribe, or follow. Send someone a text and ask them, do you ever sit and do nothing anymore? You can download my book, The Most Powerful Story in the World, by going to fromchad.gumroad.com. The transcript of this message and hundreds of others are always available at www.fromchad.com.